It is time! Hello, Artist Forge community, and welcome to another The Artist Forge live on This Time Transformation. Joining me tonight are your lovely hosts, Becca Bjorky and Bassam Saba. Welcome, guys. How was your week? If you're in the audience today, say hi. Let us know how you are doing today.
That's too much.
Making some adjustments to my screen over here.
Trying to balance out the faces.
Sharon is here. Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
So glad you're with us today. If you are in the audience today, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're finding us, go ahead and say hi. Let us know you are here. Becca, how are you today?
Chilling. I'm chilling. Like good chilling.
Oh.
I'm stress-free, which is a wonderful change of pace.
Yeah, take that when it comes your way.
Mm-hmm.
Becca, Erica is here with us as well. Hello, Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Oh, Facebook user, who are you? I'm clicking back over. David is also with us. So Sharon and David are also with us.
Amazing. So I had something happen to me that everybody warns that one day it will happen to you. If you're a photographer, I dropped my camera.
No.
With a lens, my 5D Mark IV with a 70-200 millimeter.
Oh, they're so expensive.
Yeah.
Did it live?
Yeah. Well, the camera lived, the lens didn't, which is usually the other way around. And I put it down on a little stool and I said, I know I should not be putting it down. As I was laying it down, I said, don't do that, don't do that. Yet I did it, and it was tethered. And when I came back to pick it up, I tripped and I yanked it out. So I spent half a day today going to the store to send it up to Canon and see what happens.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And it happens in a week that I have, like 2 weeks, I have 4 shoots. So of course it had to happen. That's one of my favorite lenses, but I have enough to compensate. It's not a big deal.
Oof, well,
yeah,
that sucks, man.
So it does happen, people.
Protect your lenses. I have a little belt that I wear. It's a spider holster belt that I lock my camera onto. And it's funny because every time people see it, they're like, what is this? I'm like, this is my superhero belt, man. Like Batman has his gadgets and stuff, and I have my belt and it makes me feel cool. And then I don't drop stuff, but I have been close a couple times to doing exactly what you did, tripping over my tethering cable and just jerking that thing right.
Yeah, I bought one of those. I used it a couple of times and then I find that it's there and I forget about it. And I just, you have to get used to it, right?
Yep.
But maybe I should get back into it.
Yeah, I have one too, and I've never worn it. It just feels
really
so awkward. Yeah, it just sits in my gear closet. Like.
Yep.
Oh, Erica, what's happened to Erica also?
Sympathy. Well, so first of all, thank you to everybody who's joining us today. We're excited to see you guys as we talk about transformation, which has been the theme for this month. And I cannot wait to show you the incredible art that got submitted to I don't want to call it a contest because it's not really a contest, but to our challenge. So it's some really beautiful stuff that I can't wait for you guys to see around the theme of transformation. But I want to know first, friends in the audience, and also, of course, to the moderators, have you guys had any thoughts this month so far as part of our conversations or as part of our lives that have really stuck with you? Anything interesting that you feel like I'm going to take this forward with me, or maybe anything interesting that you think has happened in the art world this week or this month that deserves maybe a little bit of conversation? If you're in the audience, don't be scared.
Do I have to compensate for Matt not being there today?
I know you can. Matt is always one to jump in real quick.
I don't want the pressure. I don't want the pressure.
You know what I can do while we wait to see if some friends in the audience have thoughts? Let me guys show you my amazing vest. Okay. So here's Bob Ross. There's Bob. I collect pins when I travel to places. So this is from Colorado Springs. from a bookstore that I love there. A Woman's Place is in the Resistance. This one is from New York City, Washington Square. This one is Ain't Nobody Dope as Me. It's from Las Vegas. Oh, Duke Silver. That's for any of my folks who watch Parks and Rec. They'll know that one. Anyway, so I have cool pins and junk all over my vest. It's my kitschy vest. It's my most artistic thing that I have. So I figured I'd wear it today.
The most artistic.
Yeah, like it's that is nothing there but things that make me happy, and it doesn't have to match, and it's a bunch of ridiculousness, So I even embroidered the back.
Cute.
So it's my art vest. Nobody in the audience sharing anything today. Come on, guys.
Well, I'm sitting here racking my brains, trying to remember what we talked about this month. What were the different topics?
It's definitely different when it's so seldom, I think.
Yeah. It's like, I'm trying to remember what we talked about on Monday, and it's like, I feel bad. I can't.
Well, we talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about managing expectations. We talked about the recession. We talked about artistic freedom. And we talked then also about derivative art, which is still on my brain a little bit.
I think we probably should chat about that just a little bit because it's interesting. We've been talking about AI as well, right? Like AI in the art world and how that's playing into things. And I think derivative art is going to be really derivative art and transformational art. I think are going to be two things that really kind of play into how people are using AI and probably the conversations that we're going to be having pretty soon. So maybe Becca, you can because I know you've been working on some stuff around that. So maybe chat us up about those things a little bit and let's see where that leads us.
Well, I mean, I'd be kind of curious on your guys' thoughts and everyone who's watching too, because that's kind of what I've been musing over is just the larger scale of what is derivative, what is transformative, and what is ethical, and whether that's something. I've been doing some reading a little bit about the concept of ethics washing, in which people present themselves as ethical, or present their company or their work as ethical, but really they aren't actually taking any ethical action to match up to that display, if you will, kind of look at it as window dressing, I guess. And so when it comes to things like whether it's AI or whether it's using stock photos in your illustration or whatever it is, there's so many realms within art, particularly digital art, that fall under that derivative or transformative kind of umbrella. And does there need to be some form of more strict ethics or even kind of law, or is that something that is absolutely necessary, or is it really dependent on the individual? Is it dependent on the client? When does the client actually care, and should they care, or should they know even about the details of these things? So I mean, there's a lot of potential kind of avenues that topic could follow, and then it's kind of up to us as artists to kind of figure out where do we need to stand by certain rules. Do we establish them to ourselves? Does the art community establish them? Does the client establish them? And when do they need to be enforced?
Well, I think the first thing that came to mind when you said that is what laws will it impact in the very short term? And I think copyright laws would be the first place where I think there'll be a lot of cases coming up, a lot of precedences, and a lot of decisions for potentially for courts to make that will probably contribute to I guess peeling the onion more into the copyright laws and establishing some new provisions in there for what AI is doing to the art world, whether it's copyright, even patents could be. I mean, anything related to intellectual property, I guess.
Sure. I mean, do you feel like that's something that should necessarily be codified into law?
I think we can probably debate it for a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years before certain cases come up and actually some legal actions taken, because usually that's how it happens, right? It's argued about, it's debated, and then eventually somebody goes to court and you start that ball rolling.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, so far we haven't been able to quite set, it ends up being up to whoever is judging the case so far, right? Because you can say like it must be 10% or 30% or whatever, but how do you judge that percent? Is it by so much color? Is it by the weight of the composition? Like there isn't a really good way to go, okay, you drew glasses and a mustache on the Mona Lisa, now it's a derivative piece of art, right? Or you put Britney Spears' face on the Mona Lisa, now it's a derivative piece of art. And so it is hard to define, because how do you define it? And I don't know that it's even possible for us to set up any kind of codified set of rules. I think we probably will see precedent set for sure. But I wonder if it will ever be the place where we'll accurately be able to judge.
Yeah. I wonder if the subject we're discussing is in any way being discussed with that overall umbrella AI ethics and AI, all the
yes.
It's I'm sure they have so many things to look at as the multiple committees they have, or associations or whatever it is. But I wonder if it's not part and parcel what they're looking at in terms of impact of AI, and what does it mean, and what kind of rules do we put around it, and how do we go about that? Or if it's something that, it's something like maybe number 157 on the list, or 2073, or yeah.
Yeah, I watched a lecture the other day on like it was with a bunch of scientists and programmers and stuff who've been working with artificial intelligence, not explicitly in art, but mostly like in the medical field, or within other forms of technology. But it was very interesting to me to hear these innovative people talking about the ethics for their creations, and really feeling that very, very optimistic about the use for the things that they've created. Like when it came to things like displacing human workers, and artists, we can relate to that, right? Like even in the comments, we were about people pushing a button and it's making art, and then we're not going to have a job anymore, right? Like, is artificial intelligent technology going to replace humans? And that's not the purpose, right? It's supposed to complement the human mind and the human ability. And so a bunch of these people were talking about like how they feel that the responsibility will fall on, like, say, companies to take the steps to educate their employees and stuff. Like, oh, if your job is going to be outsourced to a computer, then we are going to go train you and help you either learn how to like run these programs, or we're going to train you in a different job because we care about you, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm like feeling really optimistic about AI creating greater opportunities for people who may be kind of displaced by its usage. But all I can think about while listening to this was like, I don't have that much faith in corporate America and like capitalism. Like,
yeah,
money talks. And so I could see higher up people really not caring about the illustrators who are displaced, or, the healthcare workers who are displaced.
I think that's probably where the government has to step in and yeah.
But is that any different than any revolution that we've lived through, or technological advance? No. I mean, we always worry about people being replaced and having them do different tasks and things, and we end up as a society adjusting to it and finding ways. Obviously, in the short term, for specific people, it's not good news, but overall, we just get there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pro technology in general. Like, I find it very exciting, the possibility, and I want to believe that things like artificial or augmented intelligence can create then greater opportunity for people to go do cooler stuff, right? Like, I mean, even just within art, like if you can generate textures or compositions or whatever it is, and not have to spend like hours and hours doing research, because the computer can make those visual connections for you. An example I gave to someone the other day was like, say you need to design or create like a Baroque piece of furniture, and you could go to the library, go to Google, and like spend all this time like researching a Baroque, design. Or you can just ask the computer, which already makes those visual connections and the stylistic connections for you, give you those ideas that you can then run with as a creative person. I am excited, and I want to think optimistically that everything will be used ethically and like positively. But I have my reservations in general, just when it comes to large amounts of money being involved. And then, yes, like was just said, that may be when the law has to step in, and there do have to be restrictions and stuff put in place.
Yeah. I want to grab Sharon's comment really quick because I think it fits into exactly what we're talking about. And she says, I'm really torn about the whole AI thing. I work really hard on my art, and some folks just push a button and create something really good, honestly, in a very short time and get more reach. And it's kind of defeating. And I think as with any advancement, I think we're going to go through those growing pains where we start to figure out, where the limits are and where this tool is going to fit in our tool belt and how it's going to be used. And you know, initially we're going to think that it's everything, right? Like initially it's like, oh, I don't need to do a thing anymore. I can just use this. And then we'll start to hit walls and realize the limitations and realize where it can't take us and where the human mind is never going to be outstripped as far as like the ability to interpret. And I think where this is going to be interesting to judge and where it comes into play is that it's our personal interpretations of the meaning of things that allows us to decide how those artistic things fit together. And right now, AI can only say, here are all of the things that have this, and here you go. It can't interpret the same way that a person can interpret yet, right? It's going to give you a mishmash of a lot of different things that it pulls from different sources, which is really interesting because that also falls under this idea of transformational or derivative work, because it's pulling from my work, it's pulling from Becca's work, it's pulling from Tyler's work, and then it's mashing them all together, and it's going, okay, these things all fit, here you go. And it could not have done that without this library of imagery to pull from. So at what point do we say, who has a right to use the things that were all built off of everybody else's collective work and your intellectual property? But I think that also brings to mind, because we're doing the same thing. I mean, just today, I have 2 commissions that I'm working on. I spent a whole bunch of time on Pinterest. I spent a whole bunch of time on Adobe Stock. I'm looking through different faces. I'm going, okay, the skin tone looks right here. The angle looks good. I can use this kind of as a pose. Like, how am I going to get the hair? And I'm using these different sources and I'm pulling from different places and I'm going to mash them together and into this illustration that I'm making. And that's not much different than what the AI is doing. So I don't know. And one more thing, I shared with a lot of my audience, where they can go and start playing around with some of this AI, because the thing that's really cool to me is that there are a lot of folks who don't have access, number one, to the ability to do art for themselves. And number two, they cannot pay somebody what they would need to be paid in order to get that art, right? There's a lot of authors who are trying to make a go of it, and they have nothing that they can use to promote their work except free things that are already out there that really generous photographers or, maybe artists have out in licensing spaces. But they want to hire artists. They want to be able to do that. They can't yet. But these people now have access to, the ability to have a piece of art that at least works for them. Particularly, I have a few friends who are in the disabled community, and she's like, I can't do this for myself. So the fact that this exists is like magic for her to be able to promote her work. So like for me, the access, I think, is really exciting. More people are going to have access to art than ever before. So I think that's really freaking cool, personally.
That is really cool. And it's really interesting to me too, to see just within like the mid-journey being everywhere all at once. And like seeing people's creative ideas, whether or not they have not even the resources, but just the skill to create any kind of art, but they have ideas that are interesting and abstract and strange, and they can still then find some way to visualize that. And I think that's especially awesome. That's giving people an outlet, whether or not they have the particular skill set. And that I find spectacular.
I do too. Yeah. And going through, for anybody who's lucky enough to have gotten into the beta or have a subscription right now, one of the things I have found the coolest is to go through and then find out what people are saying to the AI to make it generate things, because I'll be like, how did they think of this? How come I'm not having these really cool ideas they're having? Like, I'm not even necessarily jealous of the artwork itself, but I'm jealous of the ideas that they had, because I was like, damn, that was a really good idea. I want to have an idea like that. But what do we say, I think, to somebody like Sharon or other artists out there who are expressing their reservations as far as like, I work really hard on building my skill at doing this. Somebody can go click a couple of buttons and have a really great piece of work. How do we think about that in terms of like how we relate to that ourselves? I mean, what do we do from here? And as you guys think about answers, and friends in the audience, if you have thoughts, make sure you share those, because we want to have these conversations with you. But I want everybody to think about the evolution of photography, and when all of a sudden every person with a phone had a camera in their hands. What do photographers do now? It's not all about ratios anymore. Your camera can figure all of that out for you. So what do we do, right?
But we're
Like, I
still
mean,
around.
it was
We're
a
still
really
doing
similar
it.
process, right?
We're adjusting. We're finding ways to deal with it. We're creating other services. Right. I mean, I think of this whole AI thing and say, well, what's that going to do to them? It's obvious what it's doing to the art committee. It's obvious what it's doing to commercial photography and so on. But what does it do for a portrait photographer like me? Right?
Nothing.
Well, nothing probably, because there's always going to be people who want to treat themselves to a service that I offer. Right? There may be some invention where they can just do it by themselves eventually, but it's not the same experience. So obviously, every type of art or type of photography or genre of photography is impacted differently. And honestly, in a way, I'm interested in the subject and I like to follow it, but I don't see, as I said before, I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. Like most people will, and I can't see it truly impacting what I do for the timeline that I will be doing it. That's my take on it. Am I interested in the technology? Well, like to dabble with it, maybe, right? But I'm not sitting here saying, well, how am I going to pivot and change and what am I going to do differently?
Except to maybe get some cool overlays or cool backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, we're using it. I mean, Photoshop and all these, even Pratik stuff has AI built into it now. So we're using it every day, right? It's just another tool. But fundamentally change what portrait photographers do, I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's even tapping further back into photography. Like, there's still people who shoot film. There's people who still shoot wet plates. Like, there's clients who go out and look for that explicitly, because people are always going to, like you said, they're going to want that experience. They're going to want a specific look, a specific output from the artist. And not everyone is going to want something that looks like this particular style that came out of an algorithm.
Well, and people still buy handmade furniture. I can go get factory made furniture for way cheaper, but people still buy handmade furniture. And I think every time something like this happens, when we see these evolutions in technology, we also have a whole group of people that all of a sudden now appreciate the, bespoke. They appreciate the handmade. They appreciate that at a level that actually allows you to charge even more, because before, when everybody was making things by hand, you had to stick with the market. But now when you're offering an experience or a service, you can charge way more, because most people lose that skill. When people start relying on a computer to generate art for them, guess what's going to happen? Less people are going to develop the hard work and the skill that you have developed. And so when it comes to needing to do things by hand, they're not capable of that anymore. If you were to give me an old camera and tell me that I needed to look outside and tell you what my settings would be to get a good picture, right? It would take me a bit. I'd have to think about it for a minute. I couldn't just do what a photographer could have done in, 1940 and go f16, and 1/300th of a second, and f whatever. I couldn't just pop that off the same way.
Yeah, they had like 24 thumbs, for all the rule of thumbs that they had back then, right?
Yeah.
I had an old boss who made me do that over and over and over and over in different locations. It was torture, but I'm grateful now.
Yeah. I mean, I can look at something and have a general idea of where to go, but like that skill, that instinct that you build when you have to learn that stuff. And then the same is true when we're making art, right? Like you have an instinct for composition and color palette and tonality. You have an instinct for, when a line should be thick and when it should be thin. Like you build the muscle memory, the ability to make a smooth line or to, control your gradient with your paintbrush or whatever it is. People will lose that if they don't continue doing it. And so those of us who maintain that skill, I think, will just become more valuable.
On the flip side too, this just in a kind of different section of the artisphere. I have been getting voted off the island in certain groups and stuff, or in different forums for using AI in my artwork recently, ever since it kind of hit that mainstream. And so even bringing up like, oh, well, this, I mean, people have been doing this for a little bit already, but now people have these very, very strong opinions and they can recognize it, in certain circumstance. And it is being very strongly rejected, which is fascinating to me too. So like from some of us in the art world who are just seeing it everywhere, and it's intimidating in its own right, other people are pushing very, very hard in the other direction and don't want to see it at all. So there is that perspective too, that it's not as amazing and groundbreaking and as exciting for everyone as it might look on our Facebook feeds.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting to watch people get very, very sensitive about it because they're like, no, this is invading my space. It's making people lazy. It's, taking away work from artists who have, built their careers over decades of learning to do this kind of thing. But that's like you said, Bassam, that is what happens when technology advances. When cars replaced horses, all of the people who were carters were like, well, what am I supposed to do now? I've been a carter for 30, whatever years.
Yeah.
We have to evolve. And that is where things are going. And if there isn't any stopping it, right? Like for narrators right now, it's a struggle because of course, Google and some of the other big companies are bringing in AI voice. And so you have these computer generated voices that are able to narrate things like fiction books. Can they do it yet to the same level that a human narrator can? No, just like these AIs cannot replace human artists yet. Is it going in that direction? Yep. Does that mean that there's going to be disruption in that industry? 100%. But you kind of have two options there. You either learn how to ride the wave or you get crushed by it. And I don't intend to get crushed by any waves. So I want to look at it as an opportunity to just like ride a badass wave until the next wave comes along. And I want to figure out how to ride that one too. I'm not going to sit back and become like constipated in my thinking and be like, well, not me. It's you're not stopping it. This is where it's going. So like I have to figure out a way to love it.
But I think a lot of it has to do with what your purpose is and what your intent is, right? Who are you competing with? So to look at Sharon's comment about, somebody can now just click a button and get the same result or just as good as a result. And she's right. You can get some pretty awesome stuff, right? So somebody can do that, and yet I worked so many hours to get to the same spot. Well, are you really competing with those people? So if you are, then you better get on the bandwagon and start being more efficient at what you do, because the result is essentially similar for people who are buying because of the result itself and what it looks like. So mass photography, stock photography, Walmarts of the world selling art, whatever, right? As opposed to if you're not competing with them, people don't buy art just because of what it looks like. Some people buy art, most people buy art because they have a connection with the artist. They love their story, they love their purpose, they love their vision, they love all kinds of things about the actual artist before they even think of buying art, right? So who are you competing with? I think is an element, a decision, factor.
Yeah, I mean, you have to figure out your position, right? Like, what is your position in the market? And that's, I think, going to be a really big question for people to answer. Claudia is here with us as well. Hello, Claudia. That's Claudia.
I think that was Kelly.
Oh, was it?
Kelly
I think I went over to check. Is that the lovely Kelly? I miss Kelly. Oh, I think I'm behind over here. Like I'm looking over here and seeing, oh, Claudia was before. Okay. Things are not showing up at the same speed where I'm at and the book of faces, so I'm confused. It's Kelly. So Kelly, I would love to know what you think of this, because I know Kelly was really having fun playing with the AI and getting excited about some of the things that she was generating. And being an artist that works in multiple disciplines, I'm super interested to hear, Kelly, what you think of the role that AI is going to play and how we can be thinking of it as artists. So we have time for a little bit more discussion before we take a look at some of the beautiful work that was submitted for the theme of transformation. Do you guys have any more thoughts you want to kind of touch on and give people something to think about?
Well, I mean, just kind of generally in the same overall realm, do you guys have like kind of ethical rules for yourself on how much of your work you'll allow to be derivative or transformative, whether it's stock or whatever?
It's not even on my radar screen because essentially not an issue for me. Am I wrong in reacting that fast?
No,
I don't think so. I mean, much of your work is photographing the folks who hire you, and it's
exactly.
really hard to make that be derivative,
Yeah.
That makes sense. So Kelly's saying it's rough. I don't know. I think it's a great tool. It gives people an easy way of creating without having to really put the work in. I love the AI because it's different, but I'm also kind of over it. And I think a lot of people are going to do that. I think people are going to play and get their kicks and then fall off the bandwagon because there's only so many times you can hit the button before you're like, okay, that's cool now. And, and go about your business. For me, so since I get to work in a couple of different fields where I'm doing things like finding inspiration in different places and pulling together bits and pieces of different things, I've never thought to myself, make up a rule to follow as far as like, I can take a pose, but I can't take colors, or you know what I mean? I haven't made up any rules for myself. I think at the end of the day, everything is going to look like it's mine because it is. The pieces I choose to combine, the influences that I naturally am drawn to, the experiences I pull from my own life, the way my clients are asking me to change things. Like when a client, so I have a current illustration that is a man of color and he has really long locks and he's got a scar across his face. And there's specific things about a character I'm going to be making for someone. And that came out of their head. And I get to be the AI right now. So they told me what they wanted. They gave me a brief. I'm going to go about pulling inspiration together, making a couple sketches and going, here, is this like what's closest to what's in your head? And they're like, this one, but can we make them bulkier? And I'm like, yep, we can do that. So I go back to the drawing board and I make those changes. It's a really similar process to what people are doing when they're going through that. So since it's coming from so many places, I've never thought to myself, like, where do I draw the line? Or like, is there a stopping point? Because it's always more than one thing, right? Like, I don't look at one thing and go, I'm going to make that just like that person did. I don't have any interest in that. I want to make my stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Just a second. Kelly also saying it's also not as satisfying as creating the art yourself. That being said, if someone can't put their ideas to paper, maybe the AI opens up a whole new world for them. And I would agree. Nobody is ever going to have the feeling of completing a piece of work they didn't make unless they made it. You know what I mean? Like there isn't anything that compares to that. You worked 36 hours on something and you look at it and you're like, my child, I have birthed through my pain and suffering. You can't get that out of pressing a button. You can be like, ooh, cool. But that's all you got. Do you disagree?
I'm just thinking, if after I spend 36 hours on something, I kind of want to never look at it again.
Initially, right? Like you come back to it like a month later and you're like, well, you're either like, dang, or you're like, can't believe I made that.
I mean, maybe that goes for children too. Sometimes I'm like, please, I don't want to look at you. And other times, dang, I made that.
Right? I made that. So Erica's saying, I do not use any stock or derivative because many of the competitions I enter my work in don't allow it. I photograph every part of the images I make and it would crush me to be disqualified. And that makes perfect sense. And I think, Bassam, that really fits in with what you were saying earlier, which is, where are you trying to position yourself or who are you competing with? And in that situation. Yeah.
That's again one of those examples of like, it doesn't need to be officially a law, but it still is this code of ethics put in place by a community. And then the ethics are acted upon by the artists in the community. So I think that's kind of the evolution, right? Where it's decided by the commune, if you will, before it needs to elevate to a higher, more legal status.
I think we're seeing that in some Facebook groups already who are making these decisions, right? Like, should this be something that we allow? And then based on how that community feels, they're giving kind of the yes or no. And like you said, Becca, a lot of people are like, no.
Don't like it. They don't like it. And they're real mad.
Yeah. Yeah. Is part of the issue with AI the fact that they're using other people's work to create the pieces of the AI? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are definitely feeling that. But I don't honestly see how that's any different from what I'm going to do when I make an illustration. Like, I'm not actually going to like grab a piece of your work and then stick it in there, but I'm looking at it and I'm going to replicate things that are there. I'm going to use that pose, or I'm going to mimic that light, or I like that color palette. It's not much different than what the AI is already doing, really, as far as I can tell, unless somebody has a.
I would need to know more about the specifics of like what each program is trained on.
Right.
Because I don't think they're specifically pulling like exact pieces out of other artworks or other visual input, right? You know, it's more like the recognition of things that look vaguely like this attach themselves to this word, and things that look vaguely like this attach themselves to this word, and then creating these kind of patterns, if you will, these visual patterns based on then the language input. So even if things might be kind of recognizable, I don't think they're really taking like pixel for pixel out of other people's work.
Right.
But I don't, that stuff's not available.
Yeah.
How can we say for sure? But as far as I can tell.
Right. Kelly going, who agrees with it and who doesn't? I'm in for it. I think it's
we all agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
down. We're down. Give me all the tools. All right. So having had some really interesting conversations so far, I'm super interested to continue this conversation in the Facebook group. So if you're in there today and you want to keep talking about the AI and how it's going to fit and, you know, how we should be thinking about it, should we remove it? Should we keep it? Do we find somewhere in between? What do you think? Share those comments. You can share them here, or you can share them in the Facebook group, because we want to have that conversation. And to that end, transformation, which is what we've been talking about in some form or other all month long, is the theme that we challenged everybody with for June to go and create some artwork around the theme of transformation, using that in whatever form you feel suitable. And so we had a whole bunch of really fantastic entries. I'm super bummed that some of the ones that got in late didn't have enough time to get people to interact with them. And so unfortunately, they kind of have fallen off the radar and they don't get to be included in the deconstruction today. But go look at those. If you're in the Facebook group, go check those out. Or if you're on the Facebook page or on YouTube and you haven't had a chance to join the Artist Forge yet, it is private. So you do have to request to join. We have to let you in for the safety of our members. But do that. We will let you in. Come and see some of this amazing work, because I'm pretty sure we have some of the most talented artists like on the internet in our group. So we are going to see work from 5 different artists tonight. The 5 who had the most interactions and reactions on their posts from the community members. And we are going to begin with a really beautiful piece of work. Well, once I can get StreamYard to do what I say.
We just got complimented.
Whoa, dang. Thank you. Something wonky is going on here. StreamYard does not want to listen to me. And hang on. My buttons stopped working over there. That's weird. Okay. Wow. It's not allowing me to share my screen all of a sudden. In fact, it's not allowing me to do anything. Okay, hang on. Keep chatting. I will be right back.
Sure.
Maybe. I can't even leave the studio. It's not letting me do anything. I can't mute myself or like, okay, let me see. I wonder if
you can't log off and log back on, we'll lose the whole thing, right?
Well, it's not even letting me try. So I'm wondering if maybe my mouse is dying and it's not letting
Like
me.
yank the plug out of the wall is what I meant.
I think
Control
maybe
Alt Delete.
my mouse has died. Give me a second here. So yeah, Becca has. I could live in Becca's hair. In fact, she has allowed me the privilege, so I get to do that someday. That's where my house is going to be.
When I'm finally brave enough to shave it off.
To shave it. What?
That'll be fun when I mail it to you in a box and your husband opens it.
He's like, I'll be like, I ordered a werewolf. All right, let's see if it will connect and allow me to do things. You are the goddess of
the ego boosts coming because it's just basking.
Praise her. Praise her.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Yep, I think my mouse was dying. So I'm gonna share this. Here we go.
Yay.
And I'm gonna leave this plugged in for a little bit and then use my stylus. All right. Hi, Dennis. So glad to have you with us, my friend. All right. So we are looking at the first image of the evening by Lindsay McDougall, voted on by our group as being one of their favorites. So if this is your first time with us, what we do is we take a minute to take a look at the art. We don't try to deconstruct it yet or pull it apart. We just want to see how it makes us feel. And then we share that in the comments. Let everybody know just how it makes you feel. Don't try to talk about composition or worry about light or anything like that. Just think about the feeling. And then once we've established how this image makes us feel, we start asking ourselves why. What did the artist do to contribute to making us feel this way? And then we'll think about things like composition and expression and subject matter and color palette and all of that good stuff. So take a couple minutes, or seconds, I should say. Have a look at this. And then how does it make you feel? I don't know if contemplative is the right word, but it's the first thing that pops into my head.
I feel conflicted about how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It doesn't convey conflict. I just feel conflicted. I'm trying to figure out the two things it actually makes me feel, which are probably opposites.
So Nina's saying melancholy was the first thing that came to mind. Beautiful melancholy. Sharon saying, feel like being carried away. Erica saying the word exhale comes to mind.
That's a
Dennis getting into some of the technical stuff.
Of course.
I can't pick a word either. It feels like going.
Yeah. It's sadness, but it's not sad.
Yeah, I don't really, it's not giving me sad so much. Serious, maybe, kind of somber, I guess, sort of, but not deep sadness.
I think Nina's melancholy was pretty close, but for me, it's not quite there either. And I don't know if it's one of those words we just don't have in English. I think that's Kelly saying despair, but underlying hope. Release.
That's a good one.
It feels like 2021 felt. Dennis saying, I think part of the quandary here is the butterflies are generally happy, hopeful elements, but the expression looks otherwise.
Maybe that's...
Butterflies also being a symbol of rebirth and transformation, very specifically. So
I think whatever level Erica is on, I'm on that exact same level. Because both the suggestions of exhale and release, I think, are articulating it well.
Yeah.
there's something, I mean, the word death comes to mind. I don't know why. It's just something about the facial expression and the fact that brush stroke on the face, the eye, the way the eye is, I don't know. It just feels like death. Yet you have these nice butterflies, rebirth, colorful.
I think there certainly is some aspect of death always in the rebirth, right? I mean, it is in a really big way the death of what a thing was as it becomes something new.
Yeah.
There is almost a kind of shroud or veil kind of look. I mean, I can't tell if that's actually what she's wearing, but.
And it's the contrast between her face and her hand. I mean, one is like the hand is bright and clean and well lit, and then she's kind of obscure in the background. It's very conflict. I love the image. I absolutely love the image. I mean, I it's one of those that I would just keep going back to and looking at, and I did that on the Facebook page.
Yeah. Oh, we got some power back in my mouse. Sarah saying, I feel like the person is leaving the earth and her body and her body and her soul is carried away by butterflies. Excellent. And I definitely have a similar feeling. Yeah. Yeah, Lindsay is a badass. So I think it's super clear, obviously, that none of us is having a feeling of like, yay, like we're not like, ooh, happy, let's go have a party, right? It definitely has much more of a somber, solemn tone to it. So
solemn, good word.
So what did the artist do then? What did Lindsay do in this image, you think, that's contributing to the feelings that this image is creating? Dennis already mentioned the color contrast, right? So we have these blues and oranges, which is a really kind of classic, powerful contrast of color. So what are some other things that are going on here? The blur, Erica mentioning for sure, which is a kind of a downward motion blur, right? Almost like she is kind of slowly unbecoming. Yeah, the smearing for sure. And then somebody saying, yeah, the expression. You know what? Doesn't it almost in a way, hang on. Looks like when you're laying underneath the water in a bath and just your nose and your mouth are out and you're about to take that breath and go underneath. In a way, it feels like that.
Very Ophelia when you put it that way.
Yeah. So
there's the one butterfly that's kind of off. I'm doing the thing again where I'm gesturing that you guys can't see. The one that's off to the right of the screen. And I feel like that one's almost a little more clear. It's like they get more and more coherent as we move away.
Interesting. Sharon mentioning that the face is being obscured, and I think that's really important as well. I mean, there's your face is part of your identity, right? And when you lose that, all of a sudden you start to become anonymous, or you stop being whatever it was your face made you or represented for you. And I think that's really great symbolism as well. The clothing. So yeah, we have this dark clothing that you can't tell what it is. Is that a sweater? Is that a blanket? We don't know. The movement, like Nina said. I think also interesting that we have this subdued but contrasty light, right? This is not bright and airy. It's very dark. We have, if you notice, the heaviest color, the darkest color down here, and then we're transitioning to the lightest and the brightest color up here. So kind of in the background, we have definite movement this way in the image, but of course it's balanced by the composition coming that way as well.
Yeah, no, it's balanced. And I was just looking, there is some negative space in front of her, right? Even, I mean, obviously there's that one butterfly, but it is negative place. It is heavy on the left hand, on the left side of the picture. Mm-hmm. But that negative space kind of goes along with that bright, somewhere to go,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the butterflies are obviously moving that way.
I think there's also something, and you'll have to tell me what you think, but I think there's also something to the fact that the blur is moving downward. The way that gravity moves, the way that tears move, the way, you know, it would be, I think, have a completely different feel if the blur was going behind her or above her.
Sure. Yeah. The tear reference, I could definitely see that adding to that solemnity, whatever the word.
Yeah, the solemnity. The image makes me think of relief. It makes me feel like she's exhaling and the butterflies are coming off of her.
It almost feels like one of those scenes, like in a, I don't know, maybe like kids' cartoon or something, where the special character goes back to the ether or dies or something, and they poof into
butterflies.
The butterflies, you know, so it's kind of that vibe. And I appreciate too, like, even though it's obviously a photograph, it isn't relying on the photorealism. Like the dreaminess and the surrealism of it is still very much there, and I'm enjoying that. It gives it this kind of dreamscape sort of effect.
Yeah, agreed. Lovely, lovely. We could stay on this one forever, but we can't because we still have many images to see. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for letting us see your beautiful, beautiful image and pick it apart and figure out what you did. If this image has any particular feeling to you that you want to be able to communicate, if you're here today and you want to share it in the comments, we would love for you to do that. Until then, we're going to go ahead and say thank you so much to Lindsay, and we're going to move to this next image by Sharon. This image is by Sharon Spencer. And go ahead, just like with the last image, take a little bit of time to look at this, see how it makes you feel, and then share how it makes you feel in the comments. Don't worry too much yet about picking it apart, just straight feelings.
Childlike wonder.
I definitely have some hope. Our friends on the Book of Faces starting to share some of their feelings as well. So Erica also saying hopeful. Nina as well, same feeling. I like that you mentioned that wonder, Becca, because it definitely has the feeling of when you're little and you're going to go touch a butterfly that's on a branch or something, you know.
And then mom is dragging you back to reality.
Don't touch it. Dennis saying, reaching for heaven.
Optimism.
I definitely also, it's all tempered, you know, like the hope is there, but we still have pulling hands. Are they going to succeed or not? Is that the remnants of what's getting left behind, or is that going to be strong enough to pull her back through the doorway? And you know, it's a really great balance there of not relying too much on one emotion. So she's got tension, which I think is great. And all artwork almost always benefits from some form of tension, some form of conflict, even if it's subtle.
It feels very gentle. And I mean, speaking of tension in particular, I was looking at the lack of tension in the hands grabbing the bed sheet is what it looks like. It's not a violent get back in here.
Right.
It's coaxing. It's gentle.
Oh God.
Yeah. What happened?
No, just as you were saying that, it's I'll share the thought I was having in just a minute. It's good. It's sad. It's good. it's sad. Is very much, we very much have Renaissance hands. You know, we've got the hand of God reaching out to Adam, you know, in the delicacy of those hand positions.
And even the poise in the body and the expression on the face, it's not desperate, you know, it's not like, get me the hell out of here. It's, again, that feeling of wonder and like curiosity, and I want to see. Oh my gosh, it's like the intro to Moana.
Yeah.
Baby Moana. That's the feeling.
But at the same time, there's an aspect of enslavement or something like, I mean, there's a big contrast. Yes, you're talking about all the hope and the delicate hand, and it doesn't look like it's a violent thing, but yet they're in a steel, hard, thick wood container hidden away in the darkness.
What's
yes.
I'm not saying it's violent or anything. It's just there is a darker aspect to it than all this hope.
Nina, I think, Bassam, what you're saying is so this looks to me like a front door of a house.
Yeah.
And Nina touched exactly why I said, oh no, and it was making me sad, because I agree. The story in my mind is that she's died and she's going to heaven, but they don't want to say goodbye to her. We want to keep her with us. And when you were mentioning the delicacy of those hands, Becca, because they're not violent, right? Like there's not straining hand there. There's a difference between this and this, right? That's that door, those hands through that door is the feeling of grief. That's what it feels like. That's what that feels like.
Are they letting go? Could that be a take?
Could be.
Now, my thought on the hands, though, I feel like the hands all belong to the same person. They're very consistent.
Whether they do or not, I guess you'd have to decide whether or not that changes the symbolism.
I mean, that was just my personal read on it. Like, I feel like it's almost a restriction of self, of the pulling back of the self back into the front door of reality.
Mm-hmm.
More than,
like, say, get your head out of the clouds kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So also she's used a very, even though it's a little darker and more contrasty than the time period, we have a very Renaissance palette and theme. We've got the golds, we have the chiaroscuro happening in the light pattern that's there. A lot of symbolism with the choices, the fact that she's, wearing a sheet is what it looks like and has that held around her. And of course is white, which is very symbolic of either innocence or purity and also death. And then the door being very dark. I think you're right, Bassam, that there's something, it's a very anchoring kind of thing. It lacks all of the etherealness that the rest of the image has. It's in the darker part. I mean, we've got the dark, sky back here, and then this dark door, and then of course all of this heavenly light. So a lot of tension there.
Can you zoom in on the windows? Is there anything behind there, or is it just
it's
dark?
The sky?
There's nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is a front door. Now you can see the handle. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Obviously.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear enough before. Yeah, it's a front door, and then of course we've got the front door windows and everything there.
I think what's leading me to feel like it is that kind of head out of the clouds dreaminess of it is the fact that it's a night sky, which, while feeling very Renaissance, very fresco overall, it still has this very explicitly nighttime sky. And again, I'm assuming it's a bed sheet. That's how I'm reading it, as a bed sheet. Like, it feels like actively in a dream at night because of those choices.
Sure. I think for me, the fact that it's the front door of a house, and you're body is the house of your soul, and there's a symbolism there, and leaving your house, which is where you live, and then also, you know, leaving your body. And so for me, I think that's why it reads so much more. But I'm also somebody who has experienced a whole lot of death.
Sure.
You know, many family members, very close people to me. And so it feels natural to me that, you know, the symbolism reads that way. What I'm saying is I'm obviously reading it that way because of my life experiences.
Well, that's the fun, right?
Right. 100%.
Where is Sharon? Tell us.
All right. So if Sharon is here, please feel free to share, Sharon. We would love to hear what made you make these particular artistic choices. And while you do that, we have to go look at the next image, which is by Josh Beaton, the lovely and wonderful. I'm going to go ahead. This is reading super dark to me on the screen. Is it really dark to you guys?
Yeah, if you can just brighten it up just a bit without...
Yep. No, I don't want to do that way.
This is 100% accurate representation of pregnancy.
Does that look better?
Yeah.
Is that more readable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, Sharon blessed us with an explanation.
Oh, great. Let me go ahead and grab that. Love this. It is representative of me pulling away from all the negative self-talk. We get to a point where we use the negative talk as a safety blanket, which is great considering she's using that sheet, right? So it sounds like your read on that was really, really close, Becca. Love that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can see some of these details here. Definitely discomfort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's anguish.
Could I see the face?
Which face?
Which one? Both faces?
Trapped face. Cool. And there's definitely, there is anguish there, but it almost feels like
birth.
Fighting back.
Feels like birth to me. I think you were
that. I have experienced this with small childs in my gut. Yeah, the expression, I don't know. It doesn't say pain to me. It's something else.
Hi, Bryce. Bryce is with us. Bryce, the kick-ass artist. So Erica's saying torment. Nina's saying pain. Oh, hi, Bryce. So torment, we have pain, questioning, like, why is this burden still mine to carry? Ooh,
oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's a great interpretation. I mean, I've absolutely had my anxiety feel this way. Mm-hmm. Like something you can't keep inside you that's constantly finding a way to get out, and it deforms you. You know, it's interesting that this was the choice because it's very reminiscent of a hunchback, which was one of those kind of common, we would see that as a deformity. And of course, makes you think of like Quasimodo or some of the kind of, famous stories and art in that realm. And it feels like a deformity, having an issue with that, with your own head or your own thinking or whatever, feels that way. Like almost like people can see it. If they could look at it, they would see, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Nina saying actually physically reminds her of physical pain.
Yeah. What's interesting to me, and I feel like, I mean, maybe this was just out of, you know, modesty for the model's sake, but like the covering of the chest as opposed to the covering of the deformed growth and pain screaming out of them is narratively interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And I think the fact that the subject, the model, is looking up.
Yeah.
That's what you do that when there's somebody who might be able to help you, right? Like that's what it makes me think of, is that looking up in a couple of ways. Like one, like I see you seeing me, I've got this. And the other one is like a hand would not be amiss. But that's probably because I'm so short.
It almost feels like defiant to me. Like, I don't know, fighting God. Like, why did you do this to me? Kind of feeling. And again, coupled with that expression, right? And that upward looking, like.
Yeah. There's almost a snarl, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sharon saying necessary pain. Sarah saying, I don't belong in this body.
Now that's an interesting comment from Sarah. I mean, it's like I feel like we're focusing on the model with the, you know, visible body and head as subject, but is the subject perhaps actually the secondary character under the skin?
Yeah. The inside, which I think almost fits really well as a counterpoint to Sharon's image, because this inside version of the subject maybe is the part that hasn't been able to get out of the negativity yet, or the self-talk yet. And maybe considering the fact that the subject is wearing this black, you know, skirt, which is kind of reminiscent of obviously, you know, darkness or despair or all of the different connotations that black can have. I mean, could very well influence that reading. Oh, it reminds me, I don't know if anybody else watches So You Think You Can Dance. Back in the day, there was a really particular piece of choreography that was made around the song by Sarah, I think it was Sarah Bareilles, however you pronounce her name, and it was about addiction. And I think the first part of the lyric is something always brings me back to you. Oh, the song is Gravity. I don't want to fall another moment into your gravity. And it has to do with addiction and the relationship that an addict has with the part of themselves that is addicted, or the addiction itself. And for some reason, as you were saying that, Becca, this just made me think, you know, of me and my addiction. Like it felt like a tie.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Nina, me too. I love that show.
Are the tattoos actual tattoos, or are they?
I believe so. They
look cool. I just wasn't sure if they're placed otherwise.
I believe they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only tiny thing I kind of wish Josh had been able to do is transfer some of the skin texture to, you know, the fabric that was used for the composite. It works either way, but I think it might have just lent a little bit of extra realism there. But I mean, God, this expression.
Yeah, it's great. And it's interesting. Like, I feel like this reads very just being familiar with what Josh's work looks like. It reads like his work.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Stylistically like his work. And then it has this twist to it. And I appreciate seeing that, like, you know, for especially portrait photographers who are here with us and watching, like, how can you take these things you do so well that are maybe more classic and make them a little more conceptual? And I think it's done very well here.
Yeah.
From his regular work.
Yeah. And I think the fact that the light is coming down from above says something as well.
Yeah, totally. And he gives us those yummy shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Sucker for the hard over shadows.
I'm for it. Any other thoughts, y'all, before we look at the next image?
The burden of living with yourself and the battle between your inner and outer thoughts, or your inner and outer self.
I can definitely see that for sure. So many ways to read this, which is fantastic. I love it when an artist gives us enough to interpret using our own experiences, but remains ambiguous enough that they're not slapping us in the face with their intentions. I think this is a really great image that is able to ride that line. All right. Because we can't stay and we got to keep moving on. Next, an image by Aaron. Ooh, move that over a little bit. No, do what I say. So take a minute to go ahead and look at this and then tell us how it makes you feel.
I think I shouldn't have watched Stranger Things before this because
we have a Demogorgon head happening. I mean, I just really quickly have to say the tonality in the flower is absolutely stunning.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable though. Like, it is delicate and beautiful and there's subtlety to it, but it's off-putting because it has no face.
Mm-hmm. Bryce was thinking the same thing. Sharon saying blossoming. This is going to sound convoluted, but it makes me think I want the beautiful things so much that I cease to be myself outside of them. Whatever the beautiful thing is. And with a theme of transformation, it's so interesting to think about.
The word trapped comes to mind. The body seems trapped. It's as if that person is struggling with getting out of where they are, yet, the flower is kind of representative of where they want to be.
The body language is very, very still and stiff, isn't it?
Yeah. It's, I mean, to a point where the breast is compressed almost flat.
Mm-hmm.
It's constrained, trapped.
And then presenting the self as the flower.
And you got this beautiful thing of blonde hair coming out the back. It's like
I was looking at that as well, Bassam, and wondering, I can't decide if I like it better because the hair is there or if I wish the hair was gone.
I personally would wish the hair was not there.
There's something humanizing about the hair.
Yeah. And it looks like it's just like back in a ponytail too, which is interesting. It isn't done up and delicate and beautiful. It's
right
tied back, just like the chest.
Yeah. Very like work a day.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be obviously it's obviously a woman, but would it be obviously a woman if the hair wasn't there?
I mean, that's a fair question. I think.
What is the transformation here?
Right.
Well, I mean, that's kind of interesting in itself, right? Like, it isn't like an especially feminine presenting body, but I think that the flower too is kind of giving it that sort of femme tilt.
Yeah, and I mean I think it seems like the body position was really carefully chosen not to push too hard in any direction either, because so often when we're photographing women, we tend to position them very delicately and take advantage of those curves, and this obviously has really purposefully not done that. And so I think that's definitely makes it an interesting read.
Is it medical tape? Is it a shirt? What is it?
It looks like one of those pieces of silky scarf fabric. You can see a selvage edge. Hang on, I'm gonna zoom in real quick so you can see. Here's a selvage edge of the fabric right here.
I see.
So, oops, my fault. Thanks, Magic Mouse. So Sharon's saying her hair's tied back like a leaf. Her compressed body is like the stem. Sarah saying she wants to be gentle to herself, but struggles. I like both of those reads. You know, interesting too, maybe something to consider. Two things popped into my head. So there's a poem called The Rhodora, and the famous line from that poem is, if eyes were meant for seeing, beauty is its own excuse for being. It's about a person who happens upon a flower growing in an unexpected place in the forest where nobody would have seen it before. And he's like, why is this flower growing here where nobody saw, where nobody could have seen it? And maybe if flowers are beautiful, then beauty is the excuse. Like, it needs nothing else. It's beautiful. So that kind of made me think of this. But then also the fact that for beauty to have value to a person who can see, you must be able to see it, right? So there's maybe some kind of tension there. All we see is the flower, not the face.
I think
maybe beauty hiding the complexity there.
Yeah. The black and white brings all that focus right there to that flower too, and that definitely feels very intentional. In color, I mean, it'd still be lovely, but it wouldn't have that immediate focal point, I think, in the same way necessarily, depending on what was used.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still in a toss-up. I love that little bit of the poem. That's beautiful. And I can't decide if it's the presenting of self as the flower or the revealing of self as flower.
Or even the disguise.
Yeah. Well, that would be the presenting
presenting the flower as self.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, this is great because it doesn't give you any answers. There is no additional hint how you should think or feel about this one. It's very much read into it what you will, which I really enjoy. Very, very cool. Okay, we got to keep moving so that we have time to get through everything. We have one image left to see. I'm going to give a fair warning for this one and a trigger warning, so prepare yourself. I don't even have the right potential trigger warnings to give for this, but give yourself a, if you're not comfortable, feel free to go. We love you. You don't have to stay.
Whoa. Oh, yes, that one.
Really super powerful, striking image by Erica Manning.
Yeah.
So take a minute to have a look at the image. Ooh, okay. So let me go ahead and share this from Erin about the last image, inspired by the quote, "I am blooming from the wound where once I bled." Absolutely beautiful. So Sharon saying her first thought here is strength. Powerful, Dennis saying.
Whoa. What's happening here?
Don't know.
You don't know?
Nina also saying very powerful.
Resilience.
Resilience, that's a good one. It's interesting. So Erin's saying defiance, which I love. I definitely feel, the wonderful thing about, or I shouldn't say the wonderful thing, it is the opposite side of the coin. So strength doesn't exist unless there's something to be overcome. And power doesn't exist unless there is something to fight your way through. Defiance doesn't exist, right? Like all of these things require something to overcome. And I feel the pain of that overcoming. This image makes me feel the pain of the overcoming. It's when I look at this, I don't see hope and I don't see power. I see that the moment before, if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm not making very much sense, but there's always a kind of a dark night of the soul before you learn to stand on the other side without the pain or the fear. But this is the pain point for me. It feels like the pain point. Sharon saying submitted to the outcome. Sarah saying liberated.
I'm imagining this is kind of out of left field. A weightlifter, how they lift weights, and when they're trying to hold it up there for whatever number of seconds, that's the resilience, that's the strength, that's the power, and digging in regardless of what's happening and what's hurting and what you're going through in terms of emotions and pain. And it's just an image I have in my mind.
Bassam, it's interesting that you chose that, because those moments where you have to hold the weight long enough for that to be counted are the most painful moments.
Right.
Like that is when your muscles hurt and burn and shake. And that's absolutely the feeling I get with this is when you come out on the other side of something really hard, you don't just feel like, yay, I'm good. You're sweaty and you're soaked and you're snotty and but you're there. I mean, you're there, but all of the hurt is there too. And this definitely feels like that to me.
I'm blown away by the 5 facial expressions and how she managed to put them together so well.
Yeah, I think there's disgust.
Yeah, the one on the left.
And judgment.
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that it's all in black, I think also is super symbolic. And I think having the jacket off the shoulders, and almost binding around the arms there, but the subject is not just allowing themselves to be bound, right? Like,
so there's a difference between the 3 on the right basically and the 1 on the left, because the 1 on the left obviously identifies her because of the tattoo. I know the faces are exactly the same, right? But we don't see the tattoo in the other 3 people. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of herself looking in disgust at herself.
I almost feel like there's an element of fear in that particular expression too. Like there's these steps leading up to this end moment, right? Mm. And that one version of self on that left side is halfway there.
Hello.
Yeah, I think there's something for me in the lines of the mouth that I can't read anything but disgust in any of these faces. And it's this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the drawing up of the eyebrows on that face.
Right.
for me. And the one on the opposite side, also her expression is a little bit different.
Just a little, yeah.
I'm trying to think of the word. It's like a "Are you for real?" kind of expression.
It's interesting because we have very, very clear disgust. Everything in this face is disgust. We have looking down the nose.
Mm-hmm.
We have side eye. All of the ones where you can see a lot of the whites of the eye are super indicative of emotion. And this whole like, you know, disdain.
Disdain's a good one, yeah.
Sharon saying, yeah.
Can you get off me?
And then, of course, we have the center figure, face turned up to the light, obviously that being super symbolic. I love the fact that we can see the strain and the pull in the muscles and tendons here. I think that that is super important.
Yeah, that's what gave me that image of the weightlifter, right?
Yeah.
And the thick neck that's kind of oversized compared to the body right now.
Right, because of that strain, yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have a bare chest here that is completely exposed, nothing to hide, everything on display.
And it's all presented then again to that overhead kind of universal light, right? Like, here I am.
Yeah.
To the world.
Super powerful.
On the photo end, I just got to say, I love that color in the backdrop.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
It's like, just the color all over is so just like subtly rich.
Yeah.
Not detracting or distracting from anything going on in the image.
Agreed. So I just want to pull in really quickly because I think this hat is a really interesting choice. And I know Erica doesn't do anything without a purpose. So I want to see. Lone wolf is what the hat says. So Erica's saying, this client came in for her consult and told me she didn't think she was beautiful. Everyone around her says that she is, but she doesn't believe it. She judges herself so critically, especially because her body is not what it once was. She hides behind her wigs and tries to be someone else. The center figure is the real her breaking free of that self-judgment.
Did she love it, Erica? That's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
I would cry.
And I'm so glad that she came in and trusted you with this and you were able to make this for her. All right. So it has been an hour and a half. We always take way longer than we think we're gonna, so we should just get used to the fact that that's a thing. So because Erica, the talented, wonderful artist that she is, won last month's challenge, she can't win again this month. Oh, she hasn't seen it yet. I'm releasing the different looks now. This will be the last. Oh my goodness. I cannot wait. You have to let us know how she reacts.
It's true. We've seen other posts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we had seen this one, but we're privileged here, I guess.
Lucky.
Yes.
So, because Erica won the last one, unfortunately, she cannot win this one. So we do have to take her out of the running for that. But so grateful that we got to see this really fantastic work. Thank you for sharing that, Erica. So we have this photograph by Aaron, Josh's piece, Lindsay's, and Sharon's. These 4 really powerful shots to choose from. And we need to decide which artist made us feel the most. I'll cycle back and forth between these a little bit. Friends in the audience, have a look. And then in the comments, let us know which image you found the most affecting, the most made you feel the most. Judges, what do you think?
Do I text you privately?
Yeah, what if we choose 3 different ones? What do we do?
I fight you to the death and win. Then the audience breaks the tie.
Well, I have my vote when you're ready.
I have my vote.
I have mine too. It's this one.
It's
For
me.
Me too.
So
Me too.
Nina also saying the butterflies.
Before.
Audience members, which one got you the most? Which image did you feel the most connected to? So while we hear from them, Lindsay, congratulations. First, thank you so much for submitting your wonderful self-portrait. And then also, congratulations, you have won the June challenge with the Artist Forge. That means that this image will become the banner image for the Facebook group and page. And also, you will have an interview with our own Matt Stagliano on the Generator podcast and have your work featured on the blog with links back and questions and answers and all of that good stuff. So congratulations for that. We'll be reaching out to you soon so we can follow up and make that happen. Sharon saying Josh's was her favorite. And then Nina saying this one and Sharon's, love them. Erica saying it was between Lindsay and Josh, but this one stopped me in my tracks. It's so hard to pick because they're all such stunning images and they say different things. Even though we had the same theme, they were all expressed so differently through the artist. And that is very much, I think, the power of the humanity of art, right? Is we take these things, these ideas with things like transformation, and we filter them through our own experiences. And what comes out is a mixture of our environment and our influences and our experiences and our preferences and our artistic aesthetic and all of those things combined to make a final image. And I don't think we need to worry about an AI replacing that. So any final thoughts tonight, besides a big congratulations to Lindsay? Any final thoughts, y'all?
Amazing images. My decision came down to what stops me in my tracks, like Erica said. That picture just jumped out.
One thing interesting on being transformative was that everything we looked at tonight was a form of composite and was transformative in its own right in that way as well. So just creatively interesting there that's kind of been this universal approach.
Interesting. Yeah, I would be interested to hear from Erin if hers was a composite as well, because the lighting was pretty damn close.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of looked practical, but if it wasn't, I'm super interested to hear if maybe how that worked and if she did do a composite there. But yeah, I mean, I would agree, Becca, the approach, the fact that everybody considered some form of composite work.
Ooh, cool.
Oh.
Yep, in camera. Okay, good. I thought that looked practical. I'm glad I read it right.
I was looking at the shoulder, like the shadow of where the blossoms met the shoulder did look very realistic.
Right.
Yeah. So it was. But still also in that surrealist category. There was nothing that was very, very literal, which is interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, when we're looking at concepts that are a little bit more ephemeral like that, it doesn't feel like a practical thing should be that. Although we did see some very practical images in the Facebook group from the ones that people shared. We saw some medications that were there. We saw Bassam shared, a tree and allowed the kind of our experiences with nature to speak for itself, to allow that for interpretation. So really interesting when we see these ones then in the context of everything that was shared. Super cool. All right. First, thank you to all of our amazing artists who either went out and made art or looked back through their backlog and their portfolio and found pieces of work that worked under the theme of transformation. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us, for allowing us to talk about your work here live with all of our friends out in the art community. And then, of course, thank you to Becca and Bassam for being here tonight and helping check these images out and break them down so we can understand them together. We, of course, will be together tomorrow morning, bright and early at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 6 a.m. for the West Coast and 9 a.m. for the East Coast, afternoon for our friends overseas. So we hope you will join us then so we can talk about cool art stuff and learn more how to think like artists. And then, of course, we'll be together again after that next week on Monday. So every Monday and Friday at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time in the morning. And come and hang out with us in the Facebook group. Go make sure you check out theartistforge.com, where blog posts and podcasts about art are going up all the time. So there's great information there. Let other people know that we're here, will you? If you enjoy coming and learning more about art, can you tell people about us so they can come and be part of the fun too? We want to see their art. Until tomorrow, have a fantastic night. You can't, well, maybe some people will go make something tonight. If you're going to go make something, I hope it's amazing. And if not, have a good night. We'll see everybody tomorrow morning. Bye, friends.
I hope you feel better, Erin.
Oh, no, Erin has the COVID.
Yeah, hopefully quick recovery.
Oh, okay. Yes. Sending you all the good vibes for a quick recovery. Let us know if you need anything. Post it in the group. Maybe we can send you some cookies or something. Bye, everybody.